Hello. I didn't expect to do a second ultimate guide to God's source, but as is unfortunately the case, when you try to create a model or a structure, a frame, a mental frame for explaining infinity, you will always hit some stumbling blocks. And so this time I'm not going to make the mistake of providing a definite answer, even though you'll see that it is almost a definite answer and it is very much in line with very standard teachings. But I think the process of getting to this point is as important as reaching the conclusion. So let's get started. Just a quick reminder of what I was discussing in the previous video. I was modeling Source God as being an infinitely fast flickering between nothing and everything. Infinitely fast, and this is infinite, and all possible vibrations, all possible things that can ever exist would materialize as vibrations. And then, since for every vibration you have an infinity, since for every vibration you have a vibration of opposite phase, it would cancel itself out, go back to nothing, and so forth, infinitely fast. This lesson I've deduced from the rule of perfect symmetry. Perfect symmetry, which is the principle that if something exists, the opposite exists. And that was, for me, the ultimate kind of truth. But thanks to a few comments left on the articles that I posted on Medium and the interactions I had, if you apply perfect symmetry to itself, then if perfect symmetry exists, if perfect symmetry exists, then perfect asymmetry exists. And so, back to the drawing board, basically. Well, back to the drawing board and not back to the drawing board. I think what's important here is to underline a few key aspects. First, here is probably one principle that I'll never alter again. There is no finite truth in infinity. And you can print this and placate it on your wall. I think it's a good reminder that in infinity, I mean, trying to put infinity in a box, in a mental box, is, it's cute. And at the same time, it's perfectly fine. And that brings me to another point that is really important to underline. To understand God's source, you need to start thinking in a tetravalent logic. Tetravalent means four, or four-pronged. And this relates to the dichotomy between true, the opposition between true and false. So bad at spelling. True and false. And to that dichotomy, you add true and false at the same time, and neither true or false. So in a sense, God's source is beyond this. Is beyond this dichotomy, is beyond true or false. And what this means is that this old model that I had, oops, is it true now? Is it false? Or maybe it's like going from kindergarten, I don't even know how you spell that, to school. Whatever you learned in kindergarten is not necessarily false. Some of it may be, but you're not thinking of it that way. You're thinking of all of this as a process of evolution and growth. The metaphor I like to give is that of a GPS that gets you from point A to point B. Okay, so imagine you look at these instructions and you are here. What is the truth from your point of view? It's turn right. Once you're here though, the truth is turn left. So in an absolute sense, if you look at all of these instructions, they're all true in an absolute sense. But in a relative sense, or rather a contextual sense, I would say, they are true depending where you are on that journey. And so it's, again, going beyond this true and false dichotomy and seeing things as a gradual process, and you access the truth that you need to hear at a certain time, and then you move beyond it and you're confronted with another truth. And the whole point of being reconciled with infinity or with God source, to integrate all of it. I mean, there's a YouTuber, I'll probably provide the links, she's called Teal Swan. I think it's one of the best, most honest and most truthful spiritual teachers that I've come across. She explained this very well, this process of integration of infinity. From God's point of view, it's almost as if God is executing all possible GPS indications, all possible directions at the same time, which is why God goes nowhere and does nothing really. He just be, God just is pure beingness. Because if you execute all possible directions at the same time, in an infinite number of possible directions, there's one that says you go right, you go left, you go here, you go there, and they all sort of cancel each other out and you stay right where you are. Oops, getting notifications here. So yeah, so it's don't think that this model is false. Just understand that it is one model that can be relevant to some that are at a specific point in between 0 and infinity, let's say, and navigating in that process. That's kind of another thing that I understood, is that you could say that 0 is like the seed of a tree. Seed of a tree. Infinity is like the tree, fully grown. Once it has reached its full scale, oops, oh, I'm so bad at drawing. Beautiful tree. And now, what's in between here? Experimentation. You could say that the seed is already a tree because there is no time. There is no time, but the seed can sort of play a game of forgetting it's also the tree, and it's already a tree, and expand its consciousness progressively to match that of being a tree. And that's what you observe when a seed sort of sprouts and then grows. You could say that seed is not really growing. It's its consciousness that is growing, and it's growing progressively so that it matches that which it already is. And the gradual observed process of that raising of consciousness is what we call time. We're just observing even ourselves here growing in consciousness and becoming aware that we are this. But the whole point is, and many spiritual teachers here I think make a mistake, is like, oh great, we're the tree, let's fucking jump from being this to being the tree and screw all the other intermediary steps. Those are useless, you know, blah blah blah, we're wasting our time. But that's the thing though, right? If you are at the same time the tree and the seed, if you're at the same time zero and infinity, you experience nothing. There's no experience. You just are. You just are already all that you can be, and you are the potential of all you can be. But this, you know, you forget that the experience is a really fundamental and very enjoyable thing. So when other more enlightened spiritual teachers say that it's the path that is important, not the destination, that is absolutely right, absolutely correct. So now that I've said this, I'd like to offer a final sort of just talking about karma and another way of transcending it. And I've posted this in another video, but basically what I said is karma is balance, and that also is true when you're in kindergarten, and it's not true when you're in primary school. It's a way of explaining karma which works, but fundamentally speaking, transcending karma, transcending duality, just means that if everything is a vibration, everything is source. There is nothing that is not source. And once you recognize that, if you are this vibration, and this is the vibration that you meet somewhere in life, and you can say that since these are opposites and they risk of interacting in a way that is kind of detrimental to both, you could say that this is like a thief trying to stab you, and fear is locking you in to this opposition of a vibration. And it means that these two are going to match up and kind of clash. But what you can do once you've reached an even higher state of understanding in transcending duality is that you are conscious of this process and you manipulate your own vibration. And all you need to do is just shift your vibration this way, for instance. And then, you know, if you just shift it a little bit, just shift the phase a little bit, then they are a match. Their interaction is now positive, or is beneficial to both instead of being detrimental to both. And so that's what it means to shift your perspective on life. And you could say, well, how can I see a thief as being someone that's good or whatever? The thing is, once you have reached this point where you can manipulate your vibration to match whatever you see, you're never going to meet that thief. Because since your interactions are going to be positive, he's not going to mug you. He's just going to smile at you in the street and mug somebody else. The one that has this locked in vibration of fear that is in opposition to his. So what does this bring us to? The end conclusion, the ultimate reality. And you've heard this countless number of times, and you'll probably roll your eyes when you read this. Unconditional love. And I had a hard time grasping this. It's like, ooh, yeah, woo woo, unconditional love, etc. But I really needed to put a sort of non woo woo explanation to why God's source is infinite unconditional love. And that is because if God's source is infinite, unconditional love is the only thing that strips nothing away from infinity. It doesn't try to subtract anything from infinity. It matches infinity, it takes infinity as a whole, and it doesn't try to extract anything from it. And what that means is, if you're in a judgmental state where you would say, well, infinity, that's all good, but let's remove whatever we think is evil from infinity. Let's remove evil, and then we keep infinity, and then it's all good. Well, understand that if you remove evil from infinity, it's not infinite anymore. So God's source is not God's source anymore. And understand again that it's your failure for not being able to navigate in infinity that gives you the illusion that there is evil. Of course, this is also linked to fear. Fear is the ultimate thing. It sort of locks you in. It prevents you from manipulating your own vibration to do things, whatever they may be. Interact with others in a positive, in a way that is positive and beneficial to both of you. So yeah, unconditional love is the only thing that is a match for infinity, because it doesn't pretend that you should take anything away and strip a little part of infinity away. Here, get rid of that, and then infinity is fine. So yeah, it may sound completely woo-woo again, and I've given form. I mean, I've put a logical form on my explanation. I've tried to understand all of this with mind, and ironically speaking, I'm back to the basics, the fundamentals, the most essential teachings that have ever been and will ever be. And so just like unconditional love is also linked to beauty, for instance, because you can keep adding beautiful experiences to what you do, what you see, up to infinity. And it doesn't make the last beautiful experience that you've had less beautiful. It just adds to it up to infinity. So when you've seen a beautiful scene, a beautiful nature, you're walking and you see mountain ranges or the beach and the ocean or animals, whatever, or a beautiful painting, all of these just stack up and add up, and it's perfectly fine. They will remain true for all eternity. They'll remain in infinity, and you can add an infinite number of those experiences on top of each other. And the same is true for feelings of unconditional love. The time that you've caressed the hair of your children, the time that you've put your hand through their hair, ruffled them, and hold them close, you can do that. You can do that experience an infinite number of times, and it will not take away anything from the last time you did it. It will just stack up and add up. And so we have to understand which is the master and which is the slave. And this is what I've learned in this whole process. The master is unconditional love. The slave is the mind and the form. That is, you use unconditional love as your GPS point of destination, That is your end goal. You want to experience more unconditional love. And then the directions and the experience that you'll have along the way, and the experience is dictated by the mind. So essentially, and if you looked at the 2 videos that I've done about the simulation and are we in a simulation, we have to, because it's impossible to sort of interact with reality if you just see everything as pure energy and pure waves. We create an interface to interact with reality. That is what we see. And everything that we see on the outside is just a symbolic representation of or manifestation on the outside of formless energy that we give a form to, given the kind of interface we've decided to have. If you have science as an interface, then your experience will be whatever is derived from that interface. And so there's always a delay, you could say, between a certain model and the reality you get to experience. So for instance, you get Newton and Newtonian physics, and here you have the start of the Industrial Revolution. That allowed, a mechanical understanding of the universe, allows for a mechanical technologies and reality to emerge. So you create a theory and a belief, and then you witness the implications and the manifestation of those beliefs on the outside a little later. Then you have Einstein and his theory of relativity. Einstein and his theory of relativity, and you get, let's say the nuclear age. And then here you have quantum physics, and here you have quantum computing, and all of these are just new ways to manipulate or to navigate inside of infinity, to navigate inside of it, to explore or to experience a part of infinity. Say this is infinity and you're here, this is your bubble. Let's say this is religious dogma, and then you have a bubble here that is Newtonian science. You have one here that is back to spirits and ghosts. You have one here that is God knows what, some other belief that we've never developed. And once you adopt the Newtonian sciences view, you navigate inside this part of infinity. And then when you think of the theory of relativity, then you navigate in this part of infinity. And then when you think of quantum physics, you navigate here. And then you open your mind to spirituality and you experience something different and new inside of infinity. And the reason why we're gently encouraged to change our interface or our beliefs and therefore our interface is because we're kind of on the edge of this bubble. And it's like a dead end. We don't know where to go from here. If humanity sticks with purely mainstream science beliefs, then what we get to experience in infinity, and of course that exists in infinity, is like just this unwinding here, and then it's over, of humanity that goes to war, creates a World War III over resources because of scarcity, because of climate change, because of depletion of planetary resources, and because of obviously the current system, capitalism, having a logic of profit maximization, will not do anything in time until it's too late to remedy to this problem. And mainstream science doesn't have a solution to what we're facing. And so we're gently saying, there is an exit, there is a possible infinitely long story that goes here. And we're invited to take that route because here's another interesting quote that you can placate on your wall. infinity cannot be anything less than what it already is. Oops. So you can try to say that certain parts of infinity should not exist, but it doesn't affect infinity. It only affects your experience and what you experience within infinity, and to your own detriment. So from the point of infinity, is it a problem if we experience an end of the world scenario like a nuclear winter and the extinction of the human race? Nope. It's part of infinity, just like anything else. It's part of infinity. The ones that do care is us, because we are in the experience. From outside of the experience, you're just loved. Whether you choose that scenario or choose to advance to some other place, you're loved. That's the only thing. You're loved because infinity loves it unconditionally itself. Otherwise, it wouldn't be infinite. That's all. Pure self-love. You could say that is how infinity is conscious of itself. It's just unconditionally loving itself. It cannot do anything else, because understand that being conscious of yourself is kind of a finite concept. It's like, now you're conscious of yourself, bam, now you're conscious of yourself. But it's an infinite process. You're continuously chasing after yourself. Infinity continuously chases after itself. And we're the ones that do an experience within infinity. And, then whatever we feel along that trajectory then goes to infinity to sort of inform itself of how it is, basically, how it is. And ultimately that experience should lead to unconditional love, because it just cannot be otherwise. Infinity cannot remove anything from itself. It's impossible. So I hope that was clear. It's a bit more conceptual and a little less concrete. But maybe in future videos I'll go into more concrete things, because ultimately, once you've conceptualized everything in a theoretical way, it's time to sort of go on to manifesting and giving things a form, because that ultimately is what we're here for. And therefore then making the experience, having the experience of whatever of the implications of whatever we've set for us as a theoretical framework. And the kind of theoretical framework I'm setting up here is absolute freedom to create whatever we want for ourselves, because this is the time that we have reached a point, arguably, where we have the necessary maturity to do that. If you had asked humanity 5,000 years ago, if you just go to Abraham, and instead of God asking him to sacrifice his son and staying his hand and then giving the Ten Commandments and all these things, God would just say, hey, whatever you believe will manifest, and you'll make the experience of it, so have fun. Well, it would probably amount to chaos, complete chaos. So this process is flawless. We're being removed, our guardrails are being removed, our training wheels are being removed, and now we are much more free to espouse a theory that matches the true nature of infinity, and then just give it a form that we really, really desire deep inside. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, just let me know.